Inside of me, Ben Garrett, the Riverland Roofing Studios. Riverland Roofing for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297. It's the little house up top. Thank you for joining us. He's Brad. I'm Ben at Spirit Ben on Twitter. At Brad Logan TOC, and that QR code above Brad's head is for the Ole Miss Spirit. We need you to join us. We've had a great response this month to the promotion we're running for new members right now. $30 for a full year of the Ole Miss Spirit. That's omspirit.com. Keep it going, man. That's how you can help out me and Brad. That QR code on your screen. If you're a new member, try us out. It's $249 a month, and that's how you can keep us rolling along here on Talk of Champions. Brad is in parts unknown, as he is seemingly every day these days. Hey, Brad, how are you?
Doing well, Ben. Yeah, we've got some big news coming in regards to the 2022 class. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, and excited about what's to come with Ole Miss baseball. And then as preseason camp continues to roll on, there's been some scuttlebutt come out that Deuce Knight has had a really good preseason camp. There's been some talk that Samari Reed. It's something that you've talked about here on the Talk of Champions and the Ole Miss Spirit. That's, of course, omspirit.com. And I think more than anything, just the excitement of getting to Nashville, getting to Louisville, and getting the season started.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that 2022 ruling. For those that might not know, today, Brad, kind of break it down. We knew about the ruling essentially for that class of 2022, a lot of litigation, a lot of guys trying to apply to get that back. There still has to be a ruling from the 10th Circuit Court
Yes.
in terms of really break it down for people where things stand. But for Ole Miss, Will Furniss and Judd Udemark both announced today that they were back. That's something we told you was coming on Talk of Champions. We wrote about and told you was coming at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com. That QR code above Brad's head. Please sign up today for $30 for the full year. We tell you about all this stuff right when we hear it, and it's mostly at the Ole Miss Spirit, but those are two big additions. And when you consider the rest of the lineup, which we'll get into, holy cow, possibly the most powerful lineup Ole Miss has ever fielded in the preseason. But let's not talk about that piece. Just where do things stand right now with this ruling?
Well, we had Eddie Furniss, who is the dad of Will Furniss, on the program a week or so ago. And he being Eddie, felt good about the possibility of the 2022 players getting that additional year. I think we're kind of at the end of being pretty much rubber stamped that players are going to have that extra year that we're in that 22 class. So I think Ole Miss fans, let's just say this, they can begin to get excited now because Will Furniss posted on social channels earlier today. He is coming back. I would expect, I don't know this for sure, but I would expect that Judd Udemark would not be too far behind.
He's already done that. He's already done so.
Yeah, so there you go. I've been away this morning, so that's perfect. That way you get those two back, and I'm with you. The most powerful lineup Ole Miss may have ever had. But to answer your question, I think we're at the end of it. I mean, there's one more ruling I think where we'll be waiting on, but I don't foresee that changing anything we're at right now.
No, I don't think so either. You still have to wait on the 10th Circuit Court, but baseball is directly impacted. Will Furniss announced today. We'll get Will back on the podcast. He's a friend of the pod. Judd Udemark as well. Both of them announced that they are coming back. The question is, does it impact football at all? And that is that's going to be what's most interesting about this, because I saw I don't want to misspeak here, but I saw it from Matt Zenitz. With the 2022 recruiting class being granted another year of college eligibility, there are players who've signed NFL contracts who are now looking into filing lawsuits that would allow them to return to college and possibly transfer. If that does happen, who would be some candidates for Ole Miss? Well, look at guys that are just clinging on to rosters or bouncing around. For example, Daquan Wright, who was with the Eagles, then got released. He's now with the Browns. The time is running short. You're talking about a couple of weeks till the season starts. But Xavier Harris, who was in camp with the Saints, but then got released, could he be a possibility? One thing to keep in mind throughout all of these considerations is most every roster, if not all of them, are at the 105 limit. They didn't anticipate this, so they're already full. If you were to add, you would have to subtract, or you'd have to finagle things. Now, there is always ways to maneuver, but Brad, this isn't as simple as, well, now that this has happened, go get Xavier Harris.
Would Trey Wallace be a possibility, Ben?
That is an interesting one. He
immediately came to my mind because of the wide receiver room as it is.
Let me see. I'm looking at particular, like, because it has to be 2022
right
class. You know,
so he's one that popped up. I think also if that ruling happens and Matt Zenas has proven to be correct, not only are former Rebel players but other players throughout the country become of an availability. And while we'll talk about the offensive line and Chuck has posted on the board, you have said, and many others that Karis Kern had a pretty productive scrimmage this past weekend. I know Harry Harrison said so on Rebel Hotline. You can hear that, of course, on the Talk of Champions podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio and Amazon. But I think if you could get and I hate to use the word serviceable, but that's very apropos here. If you have a serviceable left or right tackle, I think that would be somewhere that Ole Miss could look towards. Having depth on that offensive line is always crucial. I think Tajay Butler has been a great piece for that linebacker room with Keaton Thomas along with Luke Farrelly. But if you could have another couple of pieces at linebacker, I know Jarkobe Hobson along with Tony Mitchell, those are candidates that could have some backup roles. But if you could find a linebacker that could give you some minutes, I think that's definitely an area. Linebacker, wide receiver, offensive line. I'm interested if I'm Ole Miss if there's a possibility of some players.
I just don't think I think all of that is kind of pipe dreaming or wish casting.
It could be. Yeah.
I just don't think that's happening.
We're awful close to the season to be talking about this.
2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Most every roster, 105 hard cap roster is full. There are some candidates, but how many? Not really that many. Maybe you're like, well, go look and see if Wyatt Williams gets released between now and the season, and then maybe you could bring him back. You're still going to have to go through the process. And so with the truncated timeline, realizing the roadblocks in place, I just don't think football, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think football is going to be particularly impacted.
There's one team real quick, Ben, that has been very advantageous, and that's the Louisville Cardinals. They've got, I know, 2 players that have elected to get that 5th year of eligibility of the 22 class that are back practicing, and there will be vibrant parts of their offense and defense when Ole Miss plays them. So Mississippi State has had, I think, a player or 2 come back, and so there are programs throughout the country that are utilizing this new ruling.
Yeah, they are. But what I'm saying is like you just kind of making my point for me. It could happen, but if it does, it's not like you're going to go, well, you need a linebacker. It'd be nice to get another tackle, maybe a safety. You're talking about like 1 to 3.
Yeah.
So of those candidates for Ole Miss, who would they be? Well, maybe you're like, well, you lost both of your starting tackles. Where's Jaden Williams? He's in camp right now somewhere. Diego Pounds, he was a class of 2021 guy.
Yeah.
So were they class of 2022, and are they no longer bound to their to the NFL deal if they've been released, if they're just looking for an opportunity? Those are the ones that might sue after the fact and try to get in there. So there aren't that many for Ole Miss that meet the criteria. There are a few. Xavier Harris is one of them. Another would be Daquan Wright, that you could see it, but I just don't know for Ole Miss, and that's really all we're talking about here, how much that's going to impact them from a football perspective. From a baseball perspective,
huge.
Even for a basketball perspective, because they have spots open. As of today, I saw this from Luke something. Breaking, the NCAA has ruled Bryson Warren ineligible. Bryson Warren has nothing to do with Ole Miss. Only he was a Texas A&M guy. Only that he's a former G League player that was seeking a waiver for college eligibility, but it was denied. Mojave King, sound a lot like Mojave King, potentially.
Yeah.
So without Mojave King, you are at least 1 player short, if not 2. And you still got to fill 1 assistant spot. And Chris Beard is taking his time because, as you are seeing, these things change quite literally by the day. So basketball, you could see a player or 2 added, certainly in baseball. And now you've gotten Judd Udemark and Will Furniss back. Is this a preseason top 10 team easily for you, Brad? What is your breakdown of getting those 2 big bats back, especially when you consider what they're bringing in through the portal and elsewhere?
Maybe 15. I don't know about top 10, but I do believe bringing those two big bats back. Bringing those two players back, being Will Furniss and Judd Udemark. A lot of people are going to talk about the plate. I get that. But I have been very steadfast on this show. Judd Udemark is the most non-talked about third baseman defensively in the SEC and maybe the country. There were some plays made down the stretch. He just got better and better at third base fielding. And so I think more than anything is Ole Miss immediately gets a jolt to an infielder. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk about the first base position as we see the swing from Will Furniss. I'm so happy he's back, and he's happy he's back, and I know his dad is as well, a friend of the program. But the question is what happens at first base, Ben? I think the worst-case scenario, you have a platoon situation where you can rotate in and out. One could be the DH, the other could be the first baseman. Or does Will Furniss immediately go back to first base?
He immediately goes back to first base, but it's good problems to have.
Right.
If what it does more than anything is allows him to rotate with Trey Halsey, if you want to, at first base DH, and gives more opportunity then, or you can play the hot hand, ride the hot hand amongst Fern, Halsey, Luke Romine, whose bat they're going to get into the lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Judd Udemark, Will by himself changes it enough because they did enough in the portal where you could fill out the lineup. Without Will and without Judd, first base was going to be Trey Halsey or Luke Romine with the other one DHing. Second base, Dom Decker's returning. Owen Pano's back at shortstop. Third base, you were going to have the Clemson transfer infielder Jason Foltz. In left field, you were going to have the Houston transfer Blake Fields. In center field, Hayden Federico's back. And then in right field, Corey Koski, the son of Major Leaguer Caleb Koski, the son of Major Leaguer Corey Koski, playing in right field. This lengthens your lineup, especially with Judd at third base. Not only is Judd the all-time Ole Miss home run leader, not only is he that, but like you said, incredibly undervalued for how good defensively he is at third base is a premium position, especially a premium power position, and the drop-off from Judd Udemark to Jason Foltz, and Foltz might be a great player, but the numbers themselves from Clemson last year aren't awe-inspiring. You're going to have to see a breakout of sorts from him. You know what you got with Judd, and because Foltz has positional versatility, it changes the makeup and the roster construction across the board, right? Now Foltz can be Owen Pano insurance, maybe. I don't know if he's a shortstop candidate like that, but certainly a middle infield candidate, a super utility guy, can run out to the outfield if you need him to. Very Justin Bench-like in his profile. Now,
that's a good comp.
Yeah, and you still have it just adds more options to the real two areas you're gonna have to address, which is the corner outfielders. You knew left field you're gonna have to figure out something, or right field, depending on where Braden Randall lined up at the end of the year. You're running with one corner outfielder at the end of the year as you're making a run to Omaha. You have more options in that way. But it lengthens the offense, obviously. I mean, this is one of the best offenses on paper entering a year that Ole Miss baseball has ever had. But defensively, it completely changes the outlook because it lengthens it in a way that the only way it could supercharge it like it has is by bringing Judd back. Will is a beast unto himself. I don't knock, but they have first baseman, right? His biggest value add is his bat's coming back. Defensively, but the third base difference in both offense and defensive profile for the starter projected as of yesterday in terms of compared to projection today, which is Judd, is night and day right now. Not to say it'll always be that way, but night and day right now, Brad. This is a big development, massive development. And we've been talking about it both here on Talk Champions and at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate on 3. Join us today for $30 for the full year. It changes that. They still got to figure out things offensive. I mean, from the pitching standpoint, duh.
That was my question, is what does the mound look like next year for Ole Miss?
Well, it's Hunter. Hunter's going to be the guy, and then you're waiting for others to emerge. I'm curious if Walker Hooks will start. I am curious about that.
Well, and to kind of elaborate on that, if you remember, Walker Hooks had some pretty lengthy relief roles during the stretch in Ole Miss's run to Omaha. And I'm with Ben. I think Walker Hooks could be a great starter for Ole Miss. And I get it. the way that Ole Miss was able to utilize him throughout that college World Series run, I'm kind of leaning that Walker Hooks would be a starter, and I really like other middle relievers. And like Ben said, I think at some point somebody's going to step up to be that third starter.
Yep, somebody's going to have to step up, but Ole Miss is better today than it was yesterday, and I was impressed with what they were able to do in the portal. They really checked all their boxes, but there were so many boxes to check, and they were actually very, very pitching heavy in the portal for a reason, because the MLB draft wiped them out, completely wiped them out. Outside of, you got Hunter, but even guys that you were maybe thinking you had a chance to bring back, like a Will Libbert, it didn't happen. So they had to go pitching heavy. But still, even the guys they got, like a Charlie Wilcox or whoever it might be, that they love the arm and what it could be, it's still more projection than it is known commodity. Getting back for your offense, which was already good on paper, but putting its two best hitters back into what you built is nuts. Because Brady Dallimore offensively, and it sounds crazy, but he could be an offensive improvement, or like all around, than Austin Foley. Maybe not the same power production, because Ole Miss entered last year the only team in college baseball with 3 returning 20 home run hitters. The only team. Only one of them hit 20 again, though, and that was Judd. The other 2, Daniel Pasella, had a bad year, and Austin Foley fell a little bit short, but Austin still got on that power trip toward the end of the year.
He did.
Yeah, it was huge, but like I think Brady can be more of a consistent profile and not just like boomer bust with the homer. So that's the baseball beat. This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett. He's Brad Logan, at Spirit Ben, at Brad Logan TOC. What's happening right now in Ole Miss sports outside of that, Brad, that Ole Miss fans need to know if they're just tuning in? Let's update them. What's happening right now this second? What do we need to be talking about?
Well, this is kind of off the field, but the Tad Smith Coliseum is coming down rapidly. And a little bit of our fandom and our childhood is being ripped away from us. I didn't know I would feel that much of an attachment, because it's been there since 12, unused. And, wow, just to see it just kind of come apart it feels like some of my youth is kind of going away. And oddly enough, Andy Kennedy, who kind of made all the jokes about the Tad Smith Coliseum, he's now the interim AD at the UAB. So, yeah, Tad Smith, boy, it looks rough. So it's coming down, and
it's never looked more like a spaceship than it does right there.
It does.
Good grief. Talking about coming right out of the pages or off the screen of a Star Wars movie. It's Tad Smith Coliseum as it's getting brought down. But, yeah, there's a little tear in the eye. I don't know who I need to tell this to. Maybe I need to text Keith or somebody. Can somebody save me like a piece of the floor?
I think there's some plans about giving former players and letter men and women pieces of the floor. So I think that's kind of what's going on right now. So I anticipate that to be definitely something. You know, I think about all of the times I spent inside Tad Smith Coliseum, and I've had some conversations with some longtime Rebel fans that have been able to kind of reflect on some of the games inside Tad Smith Coliseum. And I remember Chris Warren's shot.
Yep.
So many big games. I remember when Sean Murphy, who was Ed Murphy's son, was dunked on by Shaq. The goal shook for 10 minutes. And they finally had to stop the game because they thought the goal had broken. And Shaq was just kind of torn apart. So many great games. And here's another thing. Don't forget about, Van Chancellor and all of those women's teams that were so good back in the 70s and 80s. And Coach Chancellor and Coach Carol Ross. Remember, she took that team to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. So there's been a lot of great women's basketball inside Tad Smith Coliseum. Look, everybody on here knows it was time for it to come down. That doesn't make it any easier seeing it crumple to the ground.
We're getting old, man. All right, so Ole Miss, as all of you know, in terms of we're breaking down before we jump to George Plaster. We're continuing our opponent preview series with Vanderbilt today. Yesterday was Oklahoma with a friend from Sooner Scoop, a part of the On3 network, just like the Ole Miss Spirit, and that's the QR code above Brad's head. Scan it today. Join for $30 for the year. But as you know, this week in the AP poll, Ole Miss was a consensus preseason top 10 team. Except for that dude. What was his name again? What was the guy that left him out completely? Phil?
I can't remember. I can't remember.
Oh, I can. Hold on. Let's see if I can find him.
Not in the top 10. Not in the top 15.
There he is.
Not in the top 25. Oh, Pat Welter, WRAL Television in Raleigh. Unbelievable.
Pat Welter from WRAL in Raleigh says that your Ole Miss football Rebels, not top 10, not top 15, not top 20, not top 25. They are just straight up. Anyway, consensus top 10 team in the AP this week. Did you know Ole Miss in Louisville is the only ranked matchup?
Yeah, I saw that.
The only ranked matchup in week 1. You mentioned how they're getting some help with this 2022 ruling. In my opinion, I don't think Ole Miss is going to get much help, if any at all. Maybe they get one guy in because they work some finagling magic. I just don't necessarily see it.
Did you say top 10? You said top 25 matchup?
It's the only ranked matchup in week 1.
Clemson's not ranked?
No, Clemson's not ranked for the first time since 2011, I think.
Okay. I thought they were ranked.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Louisville, what do you feel about them today that maybe has changed in terms of what they've gotten? And all? They still have quarterback questions. Isaac Brown is a little bit of a question mark, too, to start. I just think that Ole Miss is going to beat them pretty handily. Maybe I'm just –
I do, too. I anticipate, Ole Miss has a lot of landmines on the schedule. I don't think Louisville is one. I think – and there's been some conversations about – and Ben, I'll ask you, how much does Ole Miss not show against Louisville?
Oh, no, this game
sink? Yeah.
No, they're not going to throw the kitchen sink, but it's going to be a full script. I mean, this isn't Charlotte, and that's no disrespect to Charlotte, even though, come on, it's Charlotte.
I understand.
But, no, you treat this like any other game. There's no being vanilla or nothing. You just go out there and you play your game to the best of your ability. I do think I saw today somebody asked about Crane and Cone. There it is. It's Trey Freifogel, the former Ole Miss wide receiver, the man. Hey, Trey, whenever you go to practice, come on Talk of Champions. We want to hear all about it. We want the Deuce Report. Don't think I've forgotten, friend. This is a Deuce Knight expert, Trey Freifogel. Coached him a little bit in high school. And when I tell you that Deuce Knight, Brad wasn't wrong at the top of the hour. Deuce Knight has done some really impressive things so far in fall camp.
Well,
answering the main question, can you leave no doubt that you're the future? Leave no doubt. In the spring, I had a coach tell me straight up, I said, man, who's going to be the quarterback after Trinidad? He said, whoever, it's on somebody else's campus right now. And that was with Deuce on campus practicing. And now all you hear is, man, Deuce Knight looks pretty dead gum good. So the question, how good is Ole Miss? I saw today, Crane and Cone had Ole Miss unanimously as a 10-2 finishing team. And yet I look at Aaron Taylor from CBS, who thinks of the top 10 AP teams, Ole Miss is the most overhyped, and he mentioned the same crap that we keep hearing, all the turnover, the coaching turnover, the defense doing this, and this. Ole Miss returns 21 starters, trailing only Florida and Oklahoma. They return the best quarterback, the best running back, 3 interior offensive linemen on a starting team that won 13 games. Defensively, William Eccles is one of 4 preseason All-Americans. They return Cam Franklin. They brought in Keaton Thomas, who most of you are ranking, as you're saying, Ole Miss is the most overrated team, and they're going to fall off the face of the earth. Aaron Taylor, and then Brad Crawford says, I tend to agree. Based on what? Guys, you think Lane isn't Pete? Fine, but you really think the difference between Lane and Pete, even if you think Lane is better, is top 10 to unranked? It doesn't make much sense, because when you look at the personnel, Brad, the personnel compared to last year is a better team. Last year, we were all saying if they go 8-4, 9-3, imagine if Austin doesn't get banged up. And I hate that he did, but if he hadn't gotten banged up, Austin was starting every game. But Trinidad got in, and the rest is history. It's just a really, really weird dynamic that you're dealing with. And I don't want to talk about logo crap. I don't really think that's what it is. I think, honestly, it just shows kind of where coverage is in general.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit, Ben. I think it is logo bias. I don't think that's the large crux of the argument from Aaron Taylor, but I do think logo bias has something to do here. Secondly, I think with Lane going to LSU, I think that Aaron Taylor believes that a lot of the offense is going with him. But I've got news for Aaron, if he's listening to the show today or watching. Lane didn't catch it. He didn't throw it. He didn't kick it. He didn't block for people. Those players that were on that team last year in large part are coming back. So, by the way, Joe Judge, who we have learned was an integral part of the Ole Miss offense last year, is still on staff, along with Pete Golding, the defense coordinator, now the head coach. And other coaches, Fisher Ray was a large part of the growth of Trinidad Chambliss. He is still on staff. So it's not like that the entire offensive staff left. They didn't. A lot of them stayed. And so that's why I push back. I think that's mostly it, but I do think there's a little bit of a logo bias on this, specifically with Aaron Taylor, who Aaron Taylor is not watching Ole Miss's practice. He's not following, trends with transfers in and out. Aaron Taylor works for CBS Sports Network, and they don't even have any SEC games. It's all, Mountain West and whatever CBS Sports Network is doing. At the end of the day, it's lazy research and lazy takes. Is exactly what Trey had said. And to be fair, he just doesn't know. It's kind of like our guy that didn't have Ole Miss in the top 25. I don't have any problem with him because he's just some news dude from Raleigh. He just forgot. He just forgot to put Ole Miss in there. I have a problem with Nicole Auerbach, who works for NBC Sports, who does it for a living, literally does college football for a living, has Ole Miss 18 behind Louisville. Behind Louisville. So, what are we doing? And people say, what's it matter? Well, it matters a lot because it irritates me that people do not do their research when they do these polls. And people say, it doesn't matter. You play on the field. Yeah, that's true. But it's also true that you should understand a roster that the players that are coming back, the players that you've acquired from the portal, and you look at a thrown-together depth chart, how this team should face, and secondly, how a team's schedule lays out. We'll talk with George in a moment, and you look at Vanderbilt's schedule, it's awesome compared to Ole Miss, compared to Texas, and they have some of the worst. Ole Miss has one of the most difficult schedules in the country, along with Texas and Georgia. Vanderbilt does not. Alabama has a very favorable schedule. That's why I think Alabama goes 10-2 and makes the college football playoff. Not because they're any much more talented than the other teams in the conference, because their schedule is not as hard. But that would require people like that to do research. That would require people like that to pick up a book, to get on the internet and kind of look at schedules and make some determinations. But they don't do that, and it frustrates me.
I was on mute. I said I could tell because when Brad gets mad, he's like Ben. We wear it all over our faces and our emotions on our sleeve, but you're not like. All right, so here's the thing. I read something on YouTube. I wanted to read this out loud. This is hilarious. Ben makes great calls from @Mike Biggs. Look at this. Remember that, Ben? Sorry. Ben was the only person I heard saying that if Lane left, Ole Miss would just hire Pete Golding, they would be fine. It brings up @old memes here. I'm trying to remember if Kirby Smart got doubted this much when he got the head coaching job after being the DC.
That's a good question. And he was doubted.
And he was doubted. But not like this. And I've been saying this for 2 years.
It doesn't matter if you go to Florida anymore. It doesn't matter because this is the best defense I know I have seen from Ole Miss in my 38 years of existence. I think Ole Miss has on its coaching staff roster, it's Kirby Smart in Pete Golding. You changed it for all the better things. You should be immortalized forever in Ole Miss lore because of it. But this year was the year of the title run. It's all fun and games when you're winning. I know you wanted to think that, well,
hey, you get it. But like
that was true then, and it's more true now than it was back then, Ben.
And he did it. And he did it. He went and won in the playoffs twice. He beat Kirby Smart's Georgia. Yeah. If Kirby Smart taking over as a head coach at Georgia, former DC for Nick Saban, if he had done the exact same thing, but at Georgia, that's when you get into the whole logo thing. But I want to push back against it. It just shows that like these are lazy research takes. Like Kirby would be celebrated as the next great thing. They're still doubting Ole Miss based off of Pete isn't Lane, and it's lazy and it's canned. When the fact of the matter is, 2024, like there was a story we ran on the Ole Miss Spirit today because Neil asked Brian Brown, it was a great question in his press conference the other day, about how this defense compares to 2024, the greatest modern era defense in Ole Miss history. historically, statistically, was insane. Set new records for sacks, tackles for loss. And Brian Brown could have just deflected it and done the thing where you go, well, we got to see it. They got to play the games, blah, blah. But he said, no, they have similar talent and we have possibly more depth. And then he went into the thing, said, you got to see how it's done, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying. That when I said that back then, that was coming off of losing to Kentucky with the best defense Ole Miss has ever had in the modern era. Historic defense. This defense is compared to it by the guys coaching it. Now you could say, well, coaches always talk up their teams. Have you listened to Pete Goldie? Does he seem like a BSer? He's not. And he's not going to go and say, yeah, I've got a really good group or praise Edwin Joseph. Now he has to be healthy. He has been for the fall. He wasn't in the spring. He's not going to do these things unless he believes that's going to be true, because otherwise he's going to look stupid. And Saban disciples, even the ones like Saban was, yes, he understood how to keep things in house, but like he'll tell you the truth. He'd get up there and be honest. Same thing with Pete. He's not going to get up there and be a bullshit crapper. He's going to get up there and tell the truth as he thinks it, but like he's going to be reserved and protect his program and all those things. You get what I'm saying here? Like, if it were anybody else at any other school, it wouldn't be treated this way. It's bizarre. But I will say, anyone that's judging off that, you're being lazy, because when you look at the numbers, Ole Miss is actually one of the more veteran teams of all the contenders and have fewer question marks than the ones that y'all are so obsessed with. Do you believe more in Arch Manning right now or Trinidad Chambliss to win college football games this year? These are rhetorical questions, but I just want you to think about it, okay? Notre Dame missed the playoffs last year. Everybody loves C.J. Carr. Has C.J. Carr done it yet? Speaking of Oklahoma or Texas A&M, they return Marcel Reed. Again, the things that you praise them for, you're knocking Ole Miss for because of. So what to pay attention in with Ole Miss right now? It's the same narratives being spun. But Brad, kickoff is in 2 weeks, and I think Ole Miss is ready to show all of these people that they are the contender we believe them to be. And Louisville,
what would Notre Dame's record be with Ole Miss's schedule
this year?
Yes,
9-3 or 8-4,
or 8-4.
It could be 8-4.
They play Miami and SMU. That's it.
Ole Miss could be 8-4.
They could,
but that's because of the schedule and other teams. And like, yes, you improved, but other teams improved too. Here's my question: you loved what Texas did last year. You are in the portal coming off of last year. Cool. If Ole Miss would have gotten Cam Coleman, would they suddenly go from 9-4? You get what I mean? Like, what are we basing this off of? I would say we're basing off of knowns. And Ole Miss has more knowns at the most important places than most other contenders. So treat them.
I talked to Roman Harper in the airport, and I was like, by the way, Ole Miss fans are not happy with you, Roman. This was in Tampa. And anyway, we talked for a while, and I basically, everybody remembers when he was like, Ole Miss is not winning a championship. It's Ole Miss. What are we doing? Anyway, we rocked along, talked for a little bit. He said, Brad, the most important thing right now is that not every team, it's common sense, but it makes a lot of sense. Not every team in the SEC is going 11-1 and 10-2.
Nope.
There are going to be some 6-6s and 8-4s and 9-3. I personally believe they're going to be 5-6, 9-3 teams. I think there's going to be a lot of 9-3 teams. And I think this is going to be the first year we see a 9-3 team make the college football playoff out of the SEC. The question is who it is. And if the committee does the right thing, they'll not only weigh the wins, but they'll weigh the losses and how those teams lost in those losses. So I think it's going to be a wild, wild year. I think it's going to be insane because the schedules are so difficult. And so many teams.
But that's why we give a crap about this stuff, because, like, I don't want people to think we're contradicting ourselves or being hypocrites here. It's like we say it doesn't matter and it's nonsense, and that's all kind of true. But also, unfortunately, that's how all this crap is decided at the end of the year. This isn't like a computer with uniform, data that you just put in there and everybody's held to. No, that's not how it works.
No, I mean, I looked at I forget what gambling site it was, but I was looking at how many games Ole Miss would be the underdog in, and there were 3. It's LSU, Georgia, and Texas.
Meanwhile, LSU's getting all this love and stuff. If you really want to break down the roster, or Missouri is ranked in the top 25. Like, if you want to really do the twisted mental gymnastics that you do with Ole Miss for other teams, it's like, well, Lane Kiffin was going to start Austin all last year. He left for LSU, a quote, better job. Austin was his handpicked guy. He needed a quarterback at LSU when he went into the portal and didn't even remotely entertain Austin Simmons. All right. So one of two things then is true. Lane doesn't think Austin is as good as he thought he was. Like Sam Levitt's just better or whatever. Or Lane, that's a scouting and development miss by him, right? I mean, he was the whole program going into last year. My question then is like, why don't they get dinged for that? Lane missed on Austin Simmons, or is Austin Simmons the next big thing at Missouri? We're talking out of both sides of our mouth.
Well, here, to be fair now,
get what I'm saying. Like there are question marks. But Ole Miss has its quarterback, has its running back, has its entire defensive staff. The only things that have changed, really, like, because wide receiver coach, like, no one's thinking, well, man, will Ole Miss's wide receivers be different or better, worse under LaDainian Washington than George McDonald? No one cares about the wide receiver coach. All right, so you think Lane is better than Pete as a head coach, and you think Charlie is more proven than John David Baker? That's what you're basing all of this on, and it's nonsense, dude.
I want to say briefly this about Austin Simmons. Obviously, we'll have plenty of sample size in the next couple of weeks, but I've never seen anybody judge more by such a small sample size than Austin Simmons. Now, I am not somebody that is an apologist for Austin Simmons, but the dude only played a handful of snaps in his career.
Sure.
So, I mean, we'll learn this year. Obviously, he did not have a very good starting session at Ole Miss for the first couple of games, and I get all that. But the sample size is incredibly small for Austin Simmons. But I do believe in that system, in Missouri system, the familiarity with Caden Lee, which, we haven't talked about Caden Lee in a while. I'm somebody that believes that Ole Miss will miss him. I also believe that Caden Lee is someone that kind of trickled off last year, but the year before, his sophomore year, he had a really good year. So, we'll see. But I do think having the familiarity of Caden Lee with Austin Simmons will help.
There have only been 3 teams to have a first-team All-American quarterback and a first-team All-American running back returning. 2025, now 26 Ole Miss, 2020 Alabama with Mac Jones and Najee Harris, and 2005 with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush.
That is a heck of a find, whoever found that.
At Tadine. And yet, Ole Miss, according to what's his face, I gotta remember his name, Pat Welter, non-top 25 team. And yeah, they're probably the most overrated of all the top 10 teams, according to Aaron Taylor. What are we doing? What are we doing?
We're going to see soon enough.
I'm glad that you said something to Roman, though, in the airport. You probably did in the very Brad way. Brad's always respectful and nice. Like, now, Roman, Ole Miss fans.
That's exactly that's exactly what I did. And he didn't deny it. I mean, he didn't say, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. He just kind of smiles like, man, SEC football is crazy. I'm like, yeah, it is crazy, especially when you say crazy stuff like that or whatever. I like Roman. Roman's a good dude, but I didn't agree with him with what he said about that.
Here's another good find. This is from a couple days ago. It's from our friend Old Memes. He's in the chat. SEC single season rushing touchdowns all time. Number 1, Derrick Henry with 28 in 2015. Number 3, Najee Harris with 26 in 2020. Keywan, number 3, with 24 in 2025. He did it as a sophomore with 2 years of eligibility remaining. And he returns with not arguably, the best returning quarterback and most accomplished in college football, the face of college football, as pronounced by Kirk Herbstreit. And you're telling me, Pat, they should be left out of the top 25. They're going to regress more than any other. They address their most important stuff, and yet they're still getting treated like a misfit, like they don't belong, like get out of here. Come on, stop with all this. This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. He's Brad Logan at Brad Logan TOC. Join us at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com. That's the QR code above Brad's head, or just go and use or just hit that join button as a new member, and it'll give you $30 for a full year. That's like 75% off, $249 a month. It's the best deal we've ever had. And because y'all have been so great in responding to it, They've extended it. I don't know how much longer they're going to keep it going, but it was still active right before I checked before we jumped on the pod. It's still active. So I would encourage you, man, take advantage of it now. And if you don't like it, it's easy to cancel and, no harm, no foul. But we'd love to have you. It's the Ole Miss spirit. We want to make it the best Ole Miss community on the interwebs. Brad, before we jump to George Plaster to talk a little Vanderbilt, where are you right now?
I am somewhere in the state of Mississippi.
North.
Let me say this real quick. I'm in the southeast part of the country.
Yesterday was north. Yeah. We always be like, where in the world is Brad and Logan? That's what we do. A little bit.
That's it. I want to say a special thank you to all of our sponsors. We're going to hear from them in just a moment, but we couldn't do what we do without all of them here at the Talk of Champions. So grateful to be partnered with Allen Samuels, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. We've got some big news coming from a remote we're doing on location. There'll be more coming down the road from that. We'll have our pregame show from Barstool Nashville. I've got Ben Mintz on the show next week. We're going to talk about this and get everybody's up-to-date information about Barstool Nashville, where to come, where to get tickets. It's OleMissAlumni.com. We're partnering with the Ole Miss Alumni Association. You need to get tickets there and come join us on the rooftop in Nashville. Cannot wait from 2 until 4 before kickoff at 6. I literally cannot wait until kickoff because everybody's talking all the time and saying ridiculous things. I'm so ready to kick it off. But also I want to say a special thank you to all of you that watch and listen to us. I mean, you guys are why we do this. It's so enjoyable to be able to do this and provide this content for you. We've got some news coming from our pre- and post-game show from a sponsorship capacity, so we're excited about that. And then our pre- and post-game show on campus. We have not been able to release all the information, but we will do that very, very soon. The first show will be the Charlotte game. That will be coming to you, the pregame show. We'll have more information coming from that. And then finally, we'll have a live remote from the College Corner store. That's, of course, located in Oxford on Sisk Avenue. That will be the Thursday before we go to Nashville. So, Ben, whatever date that is, will be Thursday from 5 until 6:30 to 7. So, love for you to come by. There'll be refreshments, a huge sale going on. You can grab your powder blue gear for your trip to Nashville in a couple of days. So, a lot of exciting things here on the Talk of Champions.
We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors with George Plaster to continue our opponent preview series here on Talk of Champions. Hang tight.
Homes and businesses from the whims of nature. You need more than just quality materials. You require Riverland Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, Riverland Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what Riverland Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
Hey, Rebels, your truck is here. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford presents the all-new Ram Rebel. It's Ram, the Rebel way. Send an unmistakable signal. Rebel 24/7. Ram Rebel from your friend in the car business. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford.
Come by, let's be friends. I'm Warrior Philip Hearn. Raising my family here in Mississippi, I've tried to teach my kids to help others. I learned that from my parents. And as a Mississippi lawyer, I want to help you too. If you're hurt in a traffic accident, 18-wheeler wreck, or have insurance trouble, call 601-720-3541. That's my cell. You call, I'll answer. Let's get started. Make your first call to the Hearn Law Firm today.
Life is made up of moments. We care about those moments as much as you do. We are Modern Woodmen, a fraternal financial services organization. Member-owned, not stockholder-run. Since 1883, we've supported families, strengthened communities, and helped people reach their financial goals. From protection to saving to retirement planning, let us help you plan for those special moments in your life. We are Modern Woodmen of America.
Start my weekend Own your day on the Network for Connected Living. There's more to see. Right now, get 4 free 5G phones and 4 lines for only $35 a month with a 5-year price lock. C-Spire. Customer inspired.
And welcome into today's Vanderbilt preview, my good friend, George Plaster, 94.9, The Fan in Nashville joins me. One of my favorite cities. George and I talk a lot, and we'll talk a little Vanderbilt. But, George, tell me a little bit about what's going on now at a 94.9 The Fan in Nashville.
You know, Brad, first of all, you've been the good friend. You've come on my show so many times and bailed me out when I've needed it. So it's the least I can do. I'm on every day there from 3 to 5 p.m. We're on all the social media channels, none of which I understand other than Twitter and Facebook. But, you know, we do a good show. Kelly Holcomb, the former NFL quarterback and former MTSU quarterback, is my co-host, and we rag on each other constantly.
The former voice of the Vanderbilt Commodores, George, what year was that when you were the voice of the Commodores?
I was 95 to 98, and before that, I was a color announcer. I was in my 20s, and that was back in the 80s, and that simply is C.M. Newton. Man,
C.M. Newton, obviously. Yeah, the former incredible coach at Kentucky, incredible director of athletics. So definitely some very interesting people that have crossed paths with you, George, in your years there in Vanderbilt. By the way, we share the love of the Nashville Predators, and I can't say that it's going to be a great year, George, but I'm still going to be for the Predators.
Well, you know what? I'm a day one season ticket holder, Brad, and I was baby, and I was heavily involved in the rally to keep the team from moving to Hamilton, Ontario. And someday I'm probably going to write a book about what the summer of 07 was like, because it was a loony bin.
Yeah. It's so much fun. And you and I talk whenever I excuse me, I brought my son to a game this past year, and it was so much fun. And I just absolutely love it. I want to talk briefly about the Vanderbilt Commodores. Last year, 10-3. And the big question, George, I'm sure you get it on your show every single day, the quarterback position. What's it look like?
Well, hold on here just a second. Did I lose you?
I got you.
We tell people.
No, we got you.
Doing? So I'm trying to drive a
Have at it. There's a rental car involved in this conversation.
There is, and it's not the most professional thing going, but what the heck? Until you hear otherwise, it's going to be Jared Curtis. I mean, they've paid him a lot of money. This was a 5-star kid that Georgia thought they had, and he flipped on Georgia, and I don't pretend to know what the flip was all about, but he did. And, he had a great high school career here. I got to see him a couple of times live against the high school that I went to, Battleground Academy. And, he's got all the tools. I mean, there's no doubt about that part of it. But even better than I do, the landmines of a freshman, from day one. And, that's the rub here is this kid, capable of that kind of stuff? Because let's face it, a bunch of their resurgence is due to Diego Pavia's greatness. Now, whether you're a fan of Diego Pavia and some of the off-field antics, the on-field was incredible. I mean, he came in runner-up in the Heisman Trophy, and he deserved it. I mean, he was incredible, and he got them out of so many jams, 3rd and 14s and convert on 4th and 3. The kid was incredible.
If it is Jared Curtis and everything that I've talked to and everybody I've talked to, it's basically Clark Lee is just pushing this along, and they very well could play two quarterbacks. I think Blaze Berlowitz is the other one, George. And the good news, Cedric Alexander returns in that backfield. Is there anybody else that's going to push him for some carries? Because he's really good.
I don't pretend to know that part of their depth. I will tell you this, Brad. One of the things that has gone on, they've been able to retain a lot of the people, Junior Sherrill being one of them, a really good wide receiver.
Yeah.
They've got a level of depth that they never had, for instance, when I was doing their games. Back then it was, the first 22 are not bad. They're respectable, but then all hell had to go past that. And I think that's one of the things that when Clark got here as a former player, he knew some of the landmines and realized that depth was going to have to be something that they worked on and made better. The other thing I think has gone on that really has not gotten a lot of attention, I think when they've dipped into the transfer portal like everybody else, I think they've hit on a way higher percentage in the last 18 months than most schools. It appears to me that virtually everybody that they have gotten out of the portal, has contributed significantly.
And one of those is the tight end Cole Spence at NC State. I'm excited to see what he can do. Another receiver, Ja'Cory Thomas, junior receiver. And in your opinion, how has Clark Lee done on that offensive line? I know you got Cade McCollum, Clinton Azubuike, Bo Johnson Jr., Brock Taylor coming back as a kicker. He'll be a junior. Offensively, how has Clark been over the last couple of years? Obviously, Diego Pavia with 10-3 record last year. But, real quick, I had a chance, and I've told you this, and I'll tell others, when Clark Lee was selling a vision 3-4 years ago, it was the same vision that other Vanderbilt coaches were selling. And really, James Franklin is the only coach in modern history that has proven that you can win at Vanderbilt. And it was short-lived, but it was, a little while there while he was at Vanderbilt. Clark Lee has proven, and we heard him at Media Day 2-3 years ago, he believes in this system. And I was like, yeah, that's the same thing I've always heard. But Clark personally, his family. What has allowed him to be successful versus everybody else at Vanderbilt over the last 30, 40 years?
First of all, I'm guessing on one piece of it that he knew the landscape walking in better than most of the other coaches. I think a lot of the other coaches had been blindsided by stadium facilities, lack of this, lack of that. Clark walks in, and all of a sudden, about the same time that he rolls in, comes Chancellor Deermeyer, who takes one look at their facilities and says, oh my God, I don't have any choice but to make this better. And so the combination of the two, to me, has been a big-time winning formula. There's a player that I know pretty well, and he and I went to lunch earlier this summer. And I just asked this player, I said, okay, how did you all get to this level? I said, because as somebody who's been around this for a long, long time, I might have been the last person to admit a year ago, oh my God, they really are this good. And this player said to me that when Clark got there, that he was dealing with a lot of the residual problems of losing. Players in meetings who didn't give a damn, players with hoodies on. And, Clark just basically threw them out and said, I'm not putting up with this. When we meet, you're going to act like, this is important. And if you don't act like it's important, see you later.
Clark Lee is an interesting story in the Southeastern Conference. A former defensive player, just a hard-nosed guy, very buttoned up, military-ish when you hear him talk. Defensively, I'd like to ask, has this defense improved? Would the word dramatically be pretty prone to be used here? during Clark's tenure?
I think they were just good enough a year ago to allow Diego Pavia's magic to be meaningful. They were, they felt like they were on the ropes a lot, but about the time you'd feel like, okay, this thing's falling apart, then Pavia would put together a 15, 18 play drive, get them the rest they needed. I'm going to go back on something you asked about that I really didn't answer, and it was the offensive line.
Yeah.
I can remember some years looking around going, oh my God, they are so small. This isn't going to work. And then a year ago, you looked at their offensive line and you're like, oh my God, they got some road graders here. And that to me was one of the unsung deals, was that their offensive line had reached a point where they could stack up with other people. And I think that's a big piece of the equation a year ago.
You and I have talked about Candace Story-Lee, and in full transparency, in her early tenure at Vanderbilt, I was scratching my head. I mean, facilities were not in a great spot. They changed the logo. But then years later, I've had a chance to shake her hand, and I did so in the tunnel whenever I was able to see her whenever Vanderbilt played Ole Miss, and I congratulated her because I think there were some hires in the early part of her tenure that I didn't quite understand, but she stuck with Clark Lee. Barton Simmons came along, part of that football program. We've seen Vanderbilt baseball kind of be up and down, but I mean, Tim Corbin's really good, a couple of national championships. And, men's and women's basketball, say what you want. The men's program is doing much better. I think she's done a pretty good job. And I want to elaborate on that with you, George, about the facilities. Vanderbilt Stadium at Dudley Field completely revamped over the last 10, 15 years. And I think that's a big, big feather in the hat of really Dr. Diermeyer, but also Candace Lee and Clark Lee's vision.
Brad, I got to be honest with you. I never thought that you could turn Vanderbilt Stadium into anything remotely like a positive. I just never saw that. And, as the construction went along, and I kept seeing things and I'd be like, oh my God, this looks really nice. Then the thing opens and, there's a lot of, wow, this is really first class stuff. And I'll tell you, Brad, there was a moment a year ago, they were pummeling Kentucky here, and they are in a timeout at the end of the third quarter, and their marketing group was playing the song Jump from Animal House.
Yeah.
And the place was rocking. And I opened up the window and I was like, my God, where was this when I did their games? It actually had become a really fun deal. And whether she ever does anything else, there are two moves to me that are the key. The first one is this stadium, which used to be a complete eyesore. I mean, it was so bad that coaches tried hard not to bring kids in on certain weekends where the visiting team would have more fans. The second one was getting Jerry Stackhouse the hell out of Dodge. He was a disaster. And getting Mark Byington in here. Byington is another in a series of SEC coaches, just like the one you all got down there, Chris Beard, who know their stuff. The SEC in basketball has become a conference of really good coaches, and Vandy's got one that I think is an underrated near the top. And, first 2 years he's been there, they've been to the NCAA tournament. To me, those are moves that she's got to get credit for. And even the people that were her worst critics when she got the job have had to quiet down and say, you know what, job well done.
And you and I have talked about this, but Dr. Deermeyer obviously has been a huge component of the facilities upgrade, and it's really neat to see what they've done with Hawkins Field, obviously what they've done with the basketball arena there. But you see the picture here. Who would have ever thought that Vanderbilt Stadium would be an absolute difficult place to play, growing up in the 80s, the 90s, and all of those difficult roads? What do you believe led to this resurgence? Is there one specific thing? Is there a couple things? Is there a couple different people? Because this is not the Vanderbilt we grew up on.
No, and look, I think as much as I don't like NIL, and as much as I think that we have completely lost our way in college athletics, it probably has helped them. I don't pretend to know where he's getting the money, but I know Vandy's got some alums, unlike me, didn't end up hitting it rich, but apparently there are a few that have, and my guess is that Clark has been able to tap into a few of them. The high school that he went to is a very affluent high school in Nashville. I don't doubt that he's tapped into some of them. And, I don't pretend to know where all the money's coming from, and I'm not sure I want to know, but I think that's what's going on.
George, before we let you out of here today, I want to talk about the schedule just for a moment. It's difficult, but they kind of all are. If you look at it, Vanderbilt's got some opportunity the first 4 weeks of the season. Austin Peay, Delaware, NC State, and then Auburn on the road. 3 home games, so an opportunity to start 4-0.
Yeah, it is. The NC State one feels like sort of the flip game, swing game. Ole Miss used to always be that in the old days when both programs were really struggling. I think the NC State game is the big one. The thing that I worry about, because I know what this fight is like. I've been around it for a long time. And, let's say, for instance, that this team went 6-6. I would caution fans to say, wait a minute, look, remember the name of the school. 6-6 was a record that you would die to have in most years. And, how much do the fan expectations change, because of what went on a year ago? I've actually talked to Clark's dad about it, and we both know that, that could be a problem.
If you look at the back half of the schedule and kind of in the middle, it's tough with Georgia and Ole Miss. But honestly, the program's predicted kind of at the end of the projections of FCC Media Day: Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Florida. They're at Auburn. The schedule's not awful when you look at other programs. There's some opportunities there for Vanderbilt to have maybe 8-9 wins again.
You're doing the exact same thing I do on the air, which is look at other people's schedules, and you're noticing these 4-week stretches where you might as well be playing the Seattle Seahawks. I think at the end of the year, I think the coaches are going to have an absolute Donnybrook with Greg Sankey about this 9-game thing.
Yeah, he was put to the ringer at SEC Media Day, as you know, George. He was in the firing zone.
Yeah, and look, the problem is it's now all about money, and he basically could say to him, hey, you need the money, so shut up. But these coaches are worried about this because not only is it 4 games in a row in a lot of cases, and you're right, Vandy's is not quite as bad as some, but there's a lot of schools that are going to go through these 4 games. Not only are they not going to win some of them that they need to, but physically they're going to get the crap beat out of them. And that's going to be really telling at the end of the year.
It's a really good home slate for Vanderbilt fans. Austin Peay, Delaware, NC State's at home, Ole Miss, Arkansas is at home, Alabama is at home, and then the Tennessee Volunteers close out the year inside Vanderbilt State. So excited to see you, George, in a couple of weeks when Ole Miss comes over to face Vanderbilt in Nashville. Let's grab a bite to eat, and very much appreciate you jumping on today.
Listen, let me apologize on the front end for the way we had to do this. I can honestly say I've never done an interview, I don't think, in a rent-a-car. And that's what went on today. And, you know, I know it, you know, it probably looked like somebody was drinking, you know, with the camera shaking and all. But thanks for putting up with me. You're a great friend, and we'll talk here soon.
We'll talk soon. Thanks, George.
And a special thank you to George Plaster of 94.9 The Fan in Nashville for joining us here on the Talk of Champions podcast. Couldn't do what we do without all of our sponsors. A lot of events coming up with Ole Miss facing Louisville here in a couple of weeks in Nashville. We'll have full coverage for you on the Talk of Champions and the Ole Miss Spirit. As you see that QR code, you can join the Ole Miss Spirit today and love to be a part of a vibrant community. Also, if you're not downloading the audio version of the show, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. And you can hear every one of our shows via audio form. You can also get the Rebel Yell hotline. Yancey Porter, Chuck Rounsaville, Gary Darby, and Harry Harrison here lately has been on. And that's always a fun show, specifically in the preseason and during the season, hearing about the ins and outs of Ole Miss athletics. As for all of us here at the Talk of Champions, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for watching and listening to us. It's so much fun talking about Ole Miss sports and talking about it with you. I'm Brad Logan. Thanks to Ben Garrett for joining us a little bit earlier. We appreciate all of you that join us here on the Talk of Champions. We'll have full shows for you for the remainder of the week. Couldn't do it without all of you and without all of our sponsors, specifically our talent presenting sponsor, Allen Samuels, Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. Thanks, everybody. See you later on the week.